Hey there, where you going? No, man, you got the right classroom. Come on in, take a seat beside me, my friend. Hey, look, here come T.A. Charlie. Let's see what he got to say.
Now broadcasting from a remote location deep in the bowels of the LA wilderness, somewhere under the wood and metal of a nondescript building, surrounded by schnauzers and model tanks, we once again bring you The Road to Concord with Professor Joe
Schnauzer's already deposited the yard on me this morning.
On Rumble. You just go to Rumble and you search the channels for The Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. Might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast, it's easy, it's free. I did it. You can do it. For those technologically challenged members of the class, you can also catch us on Facebook, Twitch, X, and sometimes YouTube. That's when the professor's not going to get himself censored, but then again, we're on YouTube today. Then you can catch the podcast after the show. It's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Just look for The Road to Concord. Phones are on today. If you'd like to call in and a regular class member, you can email us for information if you don't know how to call in. You can go to the blog page. That's theroadtoconcord.com. That's where you find all your show notes, study notes, and handouts for the class. Finally, you can email a professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. He's a little slow right now, but he'll eventually get around to emailing you back. If you
think I'm caught up.
Class. These shows helpful, please click the thumbs up, like, follow, subscribe, and share it with those you think could benefit from it. Just warn them, Joe is an acquired taste, and we mean it. This show is listener sponsored, meaning we do not solicit business advertising because it wouldn't do us any good anyway. So that also doesn't limit us in the content we can provide for you. With that said, we ask for your participation on a value for value basis. If you find our show of value to you, then you provide an equivalent portion of your labor and treasure through the donate link on the Road to Concord blog page, the show description on Rumble, and in the comments on the other streams. And thank you to all of you who do support this show. We would not be here without you.
Hey, we all know T.A. Charlie isn't all there. Now, just stay seated and give it a chance. You'll soon realize we not might be the smartest, but we each independently form opinions based on reason and logic. We're free thinkers. Let's see what the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Backenhover has on the lesson plan for today.
Not a whole lot. Just going to chase some rabbits with you today. I was talking to Charlie earlier before the show and the show prep. We've got some show announcements. I'll keep them toward the end of the program today. But I've been kind of warning you that there are going to be some big changes coming. Well, they're real close now. I've decided what it is we're going to do, what direction we're going to head, and why. I'll share that with you in a few minutes. For those of you who are regular classmates, Natasha's playing hooky today. She's not there, so poor Charlie's going to try and keep up with everything. I'm not sure he can do that.
Nope.
Not enough hands.
Nope, not enough.
Not enough beep-boop.
Nope, not enough. Oh my, I went to full screen. Okay, well, I'll get out of here.
You can see he's already busy trying to figure out what to do. So, all right. I just jump right into it here today. Told you in the show description, wanted to talk a little bit about a few things politically that are going on. The tariffs. I know that when I first became really politically awake, the late 80s, early 90s, this late 80s when I got introduced to Rush Limbaugh, I was told tariffs bad. Always tariffs bad. And I never, because I got caught by, the plantation leader there, Rush, I just assumed that he's right. So I parroted what I was told to parrot. And if you people are on the right, conservatives, whatever, you think you're not caught up by the same cultic programming that the left is caught up by, I got a little news flash for you. When you're red-pilled, you see you see clearly enough to put a hex on or a pox on both houses. I should have stopped and thought about this back then. I'll try to explain a little bit of it to you today. Tariffs can be a good thing. They are essentially foreign policy, foreign and trade policy, or whatever. It's all part of foreign policy. It's how we encourage other countries to play nice. And they can be a bad thing. They can be used to cause great damage or to try to control. It's just a tool. It all depends on the nature of the people using them. Carol Quigley, in his book Tragedy and Hope, he was explaining to us that after World War II in the 50s and 60s, that the American branch of the New World Order, which does exist, they admit to it, they were trying to create a system where you wouldn't have another world war because everybody's economy was interlinked. And they were using tariffs to do this in part. But the problem is that the New World Order are communists. And in practice, communism is nothing more than a tyranny by oligarchy. In practice, communism, as Marx described it, is never going to exist. Not even in heaven, because what Marx described it's not mentioned in the scriptures either. People can see it that way, but you have to throw some passages of the scripture out the window to get to communism in the Bible. So, for example, in Acts 2, where everybody is sharing everything they own and nobody has any want, if you pay close attention, Ananias he dies not because he kept back some of the money from selling his property, but because he lied to the Holy Spirit. Well, right there, it's his property. And he's told, the property and the money from the sale was his to do what he wanted with. Well, that's not communism. Even though a lot of communists like to point to that passage in the Bible and say, look, Christianity is communist. No, it's not. You didn't read close enough. But in practice, communism is nothing more than an oligarchy. The country is owned and run by the Politburo. And you have a head oligarch, but in practice, if that head oligarch doesn't do what he's supposed to do, the Politburo will get rid of him because they're run by an oligarchy. Well, you have had communists in the American government since at least Woodrow Wilson's day, and they have pretty much wanted control over the whole world. And what they have done over time is they have used the tariffs to turn America into a colony, just like in old-fashioned colonialist days, where England would sell all its goods to us so that England could take the money we had made, what wealth we had created, we transfer it to England by buying their goods, but we couldn't sell our goods to England because they put tariffs on us. So our goods were so expensive the English wouldn't buy it. What happens is over time, it just drains the colony of its wealth, keeps it poor, subservient. It becomes a slave. Well, the communists have used tariffs to do that to America. And what they've done is destroy the middle class. Because not only are the things that we're importing, they're cheap, because we've been told tariffs bad, it gets in the way of free trade, so we can't have tariffs. But when we export, these other countries are allowed to have high tariffs, sometimes 200-300% tariff on our stuff. So nobody buys our stuff. So what happens is our money goes out, but no money comes in. We buy their goods as they import it, which sends the money to the country that made it. And we can't export, so we don't get any money back. So over time, it makes us poor. And for example, I ship things. I ship things to 86 different countries last time I counted. When I ship to Canada, our great NAFTA trading friend, I have this package I ship. They said, what's its valued at? $5. Literally, I am thinking about something for real here. And then it said, well, who's going to pay the import tariff? And I said, import tariff. And I looked and it was $9.97. So that customer has to pay $9.97 for a $5 item. So it's $15 for that customer. That's why this is one of the reasons I've lost 37% of my business in the last few years. That and the cost of shipping has gone through the roof. But when they ship to me, there are no tariffs on this exact same thing. I can buy models from them cheap. The only reason the cost goes up is my middleman here in the States is slapping a 40%, 50% markup on it. Well, that's not a tariff. That's the people who are importing it doing that. So tariffs grind down the middle class. And taxes and inflation and all of that. And inflation is part of this policy. And you also have, we export our jobs because it's so much cheaper to make it in China, and we don't have import tariffs. So if I'm Joe Schmuckatelli, or in my case, I've actually been asked, why don't I export my manufacturing, let the Chinese make my product, and I just design it and they make it and import it, because I was told it'd be a lot cheaper, and it would be. But I'm not going to do that. But if a car company does that, then your manufacturing base is moved overseas. If your computer companies do that, then your computer companies have moved overseas. And this is what they've done. They've done that to make them, it's all purely greed, to make themselves rich. But over time, it makes these countries powerful, these other countries. This is why China is a world leader. We have made China into a world power. If it hadn't been for our trade policy, they would not be as rich as they are. But there's other things going on here. And this is from AZ Central. It says, Lenin said a lot of stuff, but not all the stuff folks say he said. Blah, 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 blah. So somebody sent them a question here. And this is from Marketplace, azcentral.com or whatever, Marketplace search for, and blah, 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 whatever. But the question is, an economic professor once told our class that Lenin, the leader of the Communist Revolution of 1917, stated words to the effect that the best way to defeat the United States was to make it spend itself to death. Would you please find an official source for and correct the wording of this for me? Well, the people running this site say, yeah, Lenin said a lot of things, but some things are not, he didn't quite say it, blah, blah, blah. And then they said that the quote is widely attributed to Lenin. And in his 1974 speech, Ronald Reagan said, make no mistake about it, inflation is a tax and not by accident. Lenin once said, through inflation, government can quietly and unobservedly confiscate the prosperity of its citizens. And the people who wrote this website say the problem is that Lenin never said that, or it seems he never said that. Well, be careful with this site. This is lockstep with what Lenin would have thought and how he acted. And notice how the people who write this site, this is just a quick logic lesson. They say, seems like, appears to. Well, the question was, were they going to make America spend itself to death through, were they going to destroy America through economic policy? Okay. So the people who grab onto this say, well, he never said those exact words. That wasn't the question. So what they've done here is they've actually changed the question. This is bait and switch. So the exact phrase is grind between the millstones. That quote seems to have been attributed to John Maynard Keynes after Keynes had an interview with Lenin. And they even admit here Keynes may have been paraphrasing Lenin, in which case the quote is attributable. You should give it to him. Well, what the quote actually is Lenin supposedly said that they would grind the bourgeois, the middle class, between the grindstones of taxation and inflation. And that's what they're doing. We get taxed when we earn our money, when we spend the money. If you resell it, you get taxed again. This is all tax on the same labor. And you're not supposed to be getting taxed on your labor. Okay, the founding fathers didn't want that. So what's happening, all of this, and I'm not going to go into it in great detail. I don't need to. What's happening is to make you poor, to destroy the middle class, increase poverty, because then they can make you dependent on the government. Then you need government handouts, government programs. And this is why when you do get somebody in government who says, okay, if we want to survive, we've got to cut taxes. I mean, we got to change our tax policy. We got to change what we're spending. We got to cut entitlements, all this stuff. When they start talking to us like that, all of a sudden, they don't want to bleed. They're all in favor of somebody else bleeding, but they don't want to bleed. When we've got over 50% of the nation on some sort of government handout. And depending on how you count it, it's probably most all of the nation. So when somebody finally gets in there that wants to take fiscal responsibility for this country, we all scream, no, because now our ox is getting gored. So we never do anything. Nobody will do it. So nothing happens. So the poor keep getting poorer. The rich keep getting richer. We keep voting for people promising to reverse the situation, and you're spiraling right around the toilet. And eventually this country will go bankrupt. And nations do not survive bankruptcy. Whatever comes out might have the same name, use the same piece of property, but it is not the same country because they change your government when they do that. And that's the whole purpose. That's Cloward and Piven. spend us into bankruptcy, because they know that'll collapse the system. Well, tariff policy has been used to do that, and so has taxation, so has purposeful inflation. All of this is done to destroy the middle class, because a strong middle class cannot be controlled. They're not dependent on you. So that's what this is all about. It's all about control. At the same time, you make certain people wealthy within our system, corrupt people. And this is done to happen at every turn. It's all to destroy the middle class, make you dependent on the beast, which is government. So that's what's going on here. So when you look at Trump and you say, well, Trump wants to, fund the government on tariffs and get rid of paying tax, be careful with that too. Be careful with that too. There might be a reason that Trump is doing with all of these tariffs. And it might not have to do with making America great again. Trump is a businessman. Let's not forget this. And he's got a lot of huge businessman friends. And what he might be doing with the tariffs is just trying to realign some of the trade policy globally so that it's more beneficial to his business friends who are in the United States. Now, it does have the side effect of making America great again, and he can tout that politically. And I'm not even saying that that's what he's doing. I'm just saying be careful with that. Things are not always what they appear to be, especially at the level that we're talking about here. So that's that. Now we're going to go to something that I'm really, really, really concerned with. And I won't call him president anymore. Trump has given his presidency away. Excuse me for just a second here. This is springtime in Florida, and the pollen count is through the roof. And even though I'm on 2 prescription antihistamines and allergy meds, it's still killing me. So I apologize. Bear with me as best you can. So we're gonna look at the what's going on in our courts and our justice system. Steve Deace has said that we've never been a country that rule of law. I understand what he's saying. He says we're a country of political will. I understand what he's saying. I disagree with him in that we should not accept that. His thinking is, well, we're going to sin because we're all human. We're all sinners. So, okay, just try not to sin any more than you can. Have to. Well, that's not what the scriptures tell you. The scriptures say, go and sin no more. Shoot for the target, the center of the target, the V ring. Well, if we are not a rule of law, then throw the Constitution out the window. We don't care about that anymore because you have no target to shoot for. In which case, Mr. Deace needs to close up house because his show is worthless. And I've come to the realization that so is mine. And I'll get to that in a little bit later when I tell you the changes we're going to be making here and why. But our legal system is supposed to be rule of law, supposed to be. Here's a case in point. Gateway Pundit, Mike LaChance, April 24th, 2025. The title is Crooked County Attorney in Minnesota Who Let Democrat State Worker Walk Off After Keying Tesla Now Charges a Young Woman for a Similar Crime. And just from an X post by Dustin Graish, says, wow, a 19-year-old Hennepin County woman is charged with a felony for $7,000 in damages after keying a coworker's car. But Soros-backed Mary Moriarty let this Democratic activist walk free after $20,000 in vandalism to Tesla in the Hennepin County. 2-tier justice system, plain and simple. And yes, it is. We have a 2-tier justice system, which is not justice at all. Which means that wherever these lefties reign, you no longer have justice. And you don't have it in the Supreme Court either. This is Jim Hoft, April 19th, 2025 on the Gateway Pundit. It says, breaking. Supreme Court blocks Trump's use of Alien Enemies Act to deport illegals. Justice Thomas and Alito dissented. If you read the dissent, they basically said the Supreme Court, the other 7 justices violated the law. Alito and Thomas are correct. It's not an opinion. If you know the laws and how the law is supposed to work, those 7 justices are now political operatives, which means they are no longer justices. We should have all of them impeached. I'm not going to get into the details of this. I can't do that today. I'll have to go change my shirt to green, and you will have full-blown Dr. Evil in a or orgasmic rant of how great Hydra is succeeding in this country right now. I can't do this. The Supreme Court, they should just be charged with treason. This is judicial insurrection. This is insurrection. You say, well, Joe, you can't do that unless you impeach them. No. It's not exactly what the law says. The Constitution says that I do have to impeach them individually, but if they're not acting in good behavior, they don't get to hold their seat either. So I would just have the Congress pass a law that says good behavior is defined as upholding your oath to the Constitution and to properly adjudicate the law. And then anybody who becomes political in this process is no longer in good behavior and can be removed from the bench. And no money whatsoever may be spent from the public coffers to support these people until they've corrected their behavior. In which case, you can just go in there and tell those 7 judges that your votes no longer count. You've been removed from office. Well, that's the point. If you do what I just said, you're not removing them from office. They're still on the bench. They're just not allowed to practice. And that would fall soundly within the Constitution. But Congress is not doing anything, and we'll get to that in a moment, too. Here's another one. Breaking: Gorsuch and Roberts side with liberal justices. Illegal alien can ignore deportation deadline if it falls on a weekend or holiday. Okay, Supreme Court, why did you hear the previous case in the middle of the night on a Saturday? I guess if I'm going to follow this pattern here, this principle, then Trump can ignore your rulings if they come down in the middle of the night or on a weekend or a federal holiday. We have a 2-tiered justice system. Our judges are political. Then you have this one. Trump administration utilizes a brilliant workaround to outwit Biden judge who tried to bar them from deporting central illegal aliens. See, Joe, Trump is getting around this. No, this is exactly what I was worried about. This is the problem. This right here is the problem. This is Trump handing the oligarchs complete control of your life. Because what he's doing is acquiescing and saying, yes, even though Hamilton said the courts are the weakest branch of the government and not equal to the elected branches, I have now elevated them to being stronger than the legislature and executive combined by letting them make illegal rulings outside of the normal due process of law and kowtowing to those rulings and doing what you're being told to do by a lawless Supreme Court and lower courts. He has handed the presidency to 9 unelected, unaccountable, unpunishable tyrants in black robes. And this is the precedent that will forever remain now. He has made it where the president cannot defy the judges, even if the judge is acting totally outside their constitutional authority. The president has to abide by that. He's ceded the presidency. And he's laughing. Look, this is meant to keep MAGA in line. Folks, he handed the middle class over to destruction with COVID in his first term. He's handing the Constitution over to destruction with the judicial insurrection. I no longer support Trump. I don't care what the purpose is. This man is destroying the country. Now you have, and he is destroying what is left of the country. MAGA's cheering about, well, you can't arrest these people. It takes time. No, it isn't. That's slow playing you. So 4 years from now, they'll keep going. Hey, we could have got it done if you'd have just given us more Republicans. So you give them more Republicans and they just keep selling you out. When are you going to get off stuck on stupid and quit voting for the GOP? Not the B. So do we have a nation anymore or nah? Check out this activist judge. You may remember she sent a Christian grandma to jail last year. Breaking: federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's efforts to require proof of citizenship to register to vote. You can vote no matter where you live. Open borders. Everybody should be able to vote in America. Well, then you don't have a nation, folks. You don't have a nation. And that's the whole goal of importing all of these foreigners. It's not xenophobia. And if I have somebody tell me that I'm just being racist, I'm gonna Billy Jack them, Jack. I'm gonna take this foot and put it upside that side of your head. I'm tired of this. Tired of people regurgitating their programming to me. Somebody pull the plug on that computer. It's not worth it. It's not worth the juice it's drinking. Gateway Pundit, judicial coup update. Radical leftist judges wage all-out war against President Trump and he's not president. Against Trump, who gave the presidency to the judicial system and the nation, with 209 legal challenges filed in under 100 days compared to 64 injunctions, his entire first term. And still, here's the part of the headline, and still Republicans do nothing. Why? Because the Republicans don't want to do anything. This is the plan proceeding exactly as planned. You get to keep voting R so that they have more R's to defeat the D's. They never do it. Ever. And they won't. And they'll occasionally do some things like, hey, look, it was a brilliant workaround. Yay, we won. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. The judge just writes another illegal ruling. Now you got to go find another illegal workaround. Pretty soon Trump is on TV. Just a second, Charlie, going, oh, I need you to do something about these judges for me because, we can't cause a constitutional crisis. I got to obey these illegal rulings. Oh, it's so bad. My hands are tied. He's not president. He's not president. He's giving it over to the judges. This is an insurrection. These people can legally be arrested. Nobody wants to bother reading U.S. Code 118. This meets the definition of an insurrection. It's lawless. It is not following the rule of law. Put them all in jail. Oh, well, we got to build Kate. No, you don't. He has the authority to declare this an insurrection, suspend the rule of law, habeas corpus, and deal with things. He won't do it. He didn't do it under BLM and Antifa when they were burning the country down, saying that they wanted to destroy the United States. He won't do it now. Why? I am now convinced this is just an absolutely brilliantly mastered psyop to keep anybody who would resist this through force of arms from resisting until Trump hands it all over to the tyrants and will cheer him the whole way. Yes, sir.
Well, see, if you rip one wing off the bird, it can no longer fly and it might even die.
Yep.
Which actually I'd be okay with that bird dying, but that's just
so would
me.
I. So would I. So the deep state is never going to let us vote our way out of this. They hit the courts now, the oligarchies and their lower oligarchs have ruled that you don't need you have to allow them to use electronic voting machines, which we know are vulnerable. They cheat. And they'll say, well, we have no evidence of that. That's because they've never allowed the court cases to come into court. They deny the cases. And then when you do get a case in, they deny you the right to present evidence. That's all illegal. All of that's illegal. So you can't show that they're stealing elections. You can't show that they're ballot stuffing in the mail-in ballot. You're not allowed to show that. You're not allowed to even deny it. If you deny that this election was stolen, they'll put you in jail. People have gone to jail for denying that. They've lost their jobs. They've been destroyed. Now we're told you have no right. You have no standing. A voter has no standing with the courts to prove that your vote was counted properly. That was a court in Georgia. But yet, somehow or another, the ACLU has standing to come up and support an illegal alien who's not even American. American Civil Liberties Union. Civil Liberties Union. You've got to be an American to have American civil liberties. Those are not natural rights. Those are civil rights. Those are things that are afforded to our citizens. They've got standing in the wrong jurisdiction. This is no longer a nation. It isn't. What we have is communism. And as soon as they get rid of Trump, and they will by hook or by crook, unless, of course, he's actually what I think he is. That might be why he's not in jail, because this was all by design. And if you think that, oh, well, that's just too sophisticated, Joe, you don't know these people. You don't know these people. You haven't read enough of their, well, if you've been part of this show for any length of time, you have seen and had the opportunity to read some of what they've wrote. In which case you do know these people, in which case you know I'm not as kookpot as people might think I am. But once they get back in power, they're going to end the Second Amendment. They're going to end the First Amendment. Well, we can't have freedom of speech. It's disinformation. Says who? It's true. Well, that's disinformation because it's not true from our perspective. It's true for you, but not for the rest of the world. Well, why is it objectively true only for me, but not the world? Because we said so. And that's good enough. Two-tier justice system. And then once that happens, they will come after the Jews and Christians. They will. They've already tried. They did it under Biden. They did it under Obama. They even did it under George H.W. Bush. Yes, sir.
Well, as you're talking about that, it comes to mind that I wonder, because, for instance, COVID, use that as an example, the mass majority of those that rebelled and did not take the shot were Christians.
Yes.
And the rhetoric that Trump is putting out there to put down, like the trans and things like that are all Christian values. Could this be a very sophisticated psyop to identify these Christians so that it's easier to round them up and get rid of the thorn in their side? Oh, and we have a call, so I'll hook that up here and I'll be back.
Matter of fact, I think that's exactly what's happening. And, well, Trump's supporting Christianity. No, he's not. No, he's not. Because all that he's doing is allowing these judges to turn around and undo. It looks good. It's playing well in Peoria, and it's keeping the voters happy because we get frustrated because the judges have overruled our president. We put him in there to do this, and we got to get more. All it does is rally you up to support what he's doing. But the judge just undermines it. Who we got on the phone here?
We have Aaron.
Hey, good morning, brother. Son of Thunder. What's up, bro?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm a little worked up. How about you?
Well, yeah, I can hear that. We don't already. Our freedom of speech has already been squashed. You can't say anything about a Muslim. You can't say anything about, any illegal or anybody like that. You get put in jail for hate speech. So, you can bash Christians all day long, but you can't say anything about nobody else.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say anything about the enemy's team. And you have ears to hear what I just said.
Yeah, well, I already know most of what you're talking about, and like I say, I don't know. I tell you, I'm like you. I don't trust Trump. And I didn't trust him when I voted for him, but
Same here.
But he ain't. I don't know where people get the idea that the Supreme Court has more power than the president or Congress. I don't know where they think that comes from. But as we both know, the founders said the same thing about lawyers and judges.
It's programming, Aaron.
Ruination of this country.
Yeah, it's programming. We've been told this stuff, because they stole judicial supremacy and right of review. And that's not legal. That's not in the Constitution, but they steal it and we say it's legal and the system supports it. That's why people think that the election in 2020 wasn't stolen, because you're not allowed to speak out about it. You're not allowed to show evidence against it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes truth, and you can't undo it with people.
That's right. That's exactly right. But I wanted you need to go talk about this new thing they're trying to implement now. It ain't new. It's since the Patriot Act. This real ID. But you see who's backing that? Our little what's her name? The ICE agent woman, Christy Nome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they're telling you it's going to be a good thing.
It's eventually going to be to where if you want to even travel in your own vehicle, you're going to have that.
Papers, please. Well, folks, what party? Which party was it that gave us the Patriot Act?
Oh, that'd be George Bush.
And which party was it that made it legal for them to promote propaganda again? Which party legalized propaganda that was the GOP?
I believe that was Obama, wasn't it? Was it Obama or was it?
Obama passed the bill, but it was Republicans that passed it. He signed it, but it was happening right as Bush and Obama were swapping each other out. That started under Bush.
Right.
Yep, that started under Bush. Obama just gave it a push.
One party pretending to be two.
Yeah, under the idea of self-defense, the military, the police, rule of law. It's one party pretending to be two. Yep.
We give you security. You give us freedom.
And those people deserve neither.
Neither of them. Exactly right. You want to talk to me about freedom if you ain't willing to lay down your life for it, don't talk to me about freedom.
Amen to that.
And most people ain't willing to, like you say, stand in that breach. Most people don't have the stomach for it. But they're going to force people eventually, like myself. If I'm going to try my best to hold my anger and my temper as best I can, but I'm afraid they're going to force people like us to do things we really don't want to do.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but you can't do that unless you're underneath the authority of a legitimate government.
A legitimate government, and we don't have anybody that wants to stand up and say no more.
You're actually right now where you're at now. You're ahead of the lesson plan, so we'll get to that in a little bit.
I'm always ahead of the lesson plan. All right, brother. You have a good day, man. Y'all be good.
You stay safe driving now.
Yeah, we headed to Gainesville to the VA. I got to go down here and let them check my leg out again.
All right. Well, take care. Yahweh bless.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Thanks for the call. Bye. He mentioned Islam. That was the next posty note. As soon as the Uniparty gets a hold of things and the communists think that they're in charge, they're going to find out that they've already allowed Islam in the door. Have you been paying attention to what's going on in Europe? Sweden is one of the murder capitals of Europe now. Their crime is through the roof. And it's all what they call immigrants. It's all Muslims. It's Muslims. And that's because Islam does not recognize the Western way of life, the Western rule, the Western law. And when they get to be enough, they take over. That's the way Islam has always worked. Unless they're in an open jihad by the sword, they take over through cultural jihad. That's the nature of the beast. It's a cancer. Everything I've been watching for the last 2 decades, all the signs, all of the trigger points, everything I've got a long record of this. I've got several blogs. I blogged on the .com, the oil, O-Y-L, oilforyourlamp.com. Mostly Christian writing. I blogged on the road to Damascus.com, another Christian blogging site. I've blogged on the road to Concord. I've blogged, or the road to Concord. I was writing on the Rio Norte line, which I think is now dead. I've been writing and telling people what's coming now for over 2 decades. It's all here. It's all of it. And most people can't see it. Even when I tell them what to look for, they still don't see it. Now, I've been out and about last couple of weeks with my wife, and we've started to have dealings with the younger generations to people taking your order at a restaurant or trying to help you do something else or whatever. It doesn't matter. Wherever I encounter them, the young folks that are taking over now, and I'm talking probably in their early 30s and under, they're toast, Jack. They're already toast. And I know there's a group of conservative young people really grow. It's not enough. It's not enough. It is actually a minority. That's more of the psyop. I ran into somebody last night that she's working a counter at a restaurant. When I was young, when I was her age, they would have never hired me. I'd have been fired. The customer tells you what they want. You say it back to them. You repeat it. And then you forget what they wanted just as soon as you've repeated it. And it got keyed in wrong 4, 5, 6 times. Folks, that's not a isolated incident. I've been running into this everywhere. And then if they get frustrated, they don't know. We are reaping the result of everybody gets a trophy, even if you don't have to work for it. We are reaping the results of your truth is not my truth. You can't do that to me. You can't upset me. You can't trigger me. You can't offend me, blah, blah, blah. We are reaping the results of that. And we are also in societal collapse. Feminism has succeeded. This thing with Trump, he wants $5,000 to everybody who's going to have a baby. First of all, you got to get married. Otherwise, all you're doing is $5,000 to have a baby, which is going to put you on welfare. And now I got more money I got to spend. But what it's for is we've fallen below the replacement rate for our country. We're not having enough babies. Japan's having this same problem. And now when people talk about this, what they say immediately is, oh, that's just because you don't have enough white babies. They turn it into a race thing, so we can't talk about it. It's not a race thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual battle. It's all lawlessness. It's all going to give us open tyranny in the flesh. It's going to give us fleshly tyranny. In the material world, it's going to give us tyranny. This is a spiritual battle. Make no mistake about that. But as I said, few people can see history when they're in it. They don't see it clearly when they're in it. They don't see it for what it is or for what it means. I don't claim to see it that clearly, but I do see it. We're in it. I see it. It's everything I knew I had to watch for. It's all here. It's not coming. It's not close at hand. You're in the storm. And most people don't see it for that. That's what the PSYOP is meant to do. That's the matrix. That's the matrix. And they don't see it for what it is. This is they live. The propagandists at work. Even when I tell people, you educate them about MK Ultra, you educate them about Mockingbird, and they see, well, look, man, look at this video. It's got 50 people lined up all saying the exact same thing all at one time. It's all different local news stations. Oh, how does this happen? Mockingbird, you morons. Oh, well, I've given up. I've given up. I will not cast pearls before swine anymore. And we'll get to that latter half of the show. I can't stop what is inevitable. And it's not that I've surrendered. Okay? Don't get me wrong. When I say I've given up, it's not that I've surrendered. It's there comes a point where you have to fall back to the keep, to the last line of defense, and fight for what you can save. That's where I'm at. I haven't given up the struggle, but I'm going to stop trying to save that which doesn't want to live. Yes, sir.
Who can fight the beast?
Yes.
We can't, but I do know who can.
Yes, and he ain't me.
Yep.
Or I ain't him. All I can do now is help strengthen those who will listen, those who can be helped, those that want to help, that want help, those that are going to actually act on what they learn, what they decide for themselves in the world. But Charlie, we're going to probably take the break just a few minutes early here, maybe 15 minutes early. Just let me wrap this up. We'll come back after the break. I have warned long enough, and I understand that I'm an acquired taste. I know that I'm nobody the world wants to listen to. I got that. I understand that. I got it. Very few people are going to listen to what I have to say. And I don't blame them. I don't. I've been wrong about a lot of things in my life, but the things I do on this show, I know I'm not wrong about. I wouldn't bring them to you if I couldn't defend them. I wouldn't. And when I do bring you something that I can't necessarily defend, I tell you it's an opinion or it's a guess or it's a supposition. I make it very clear. But the things that I'm going to start doing going forward, I know that I can help with this, even with being an acquired taste. I have to make a pivot. I have to for my own health, my own emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. I can't keep, the old saying, you keep trying the same thing over and over again, nothing changes. That's the operational definition of insanity. I can't keep beating my head against the wall either. That's still insanity, and it gives you a headache and a concussion and eventually kills you if you beat hard enough. I can't do that anymore. I've got to make some changes. I'm going to discuss those next when I come back, because I've reached the point where the segue that I just read goes into what I want to tell you next about the changes that are coming up soon, next couple weeks. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, but I still need time to let people know that things are going to be changing. So we're going to take a break for 6 minutes, not a normal break. When we come back, I'll tell you about the future of the show, my future, what I'm going to be doing, why, and how I plan on dealing with the inevitable changes from that. So we'll see you in 6. Hey, Charlie, somebody asked on Road to Concord on the Rumble if we're running as an NPA. I don't know who that is. Was that you? Because it looks like it was our comment. Anyhow, we'll have to figure that out later, folks. Got a comment on the board from...
No, I was responding to one of the commenters that was saying,
Okay.
Let's see, when will we get something better than the GOP? And then I asked him, when are you running as NPA?
Yeah, no party affiliation. Okay, I got it now. Comment on the board from Deltros that says laws are just paperwork unless people are willing to follow them. Yes, exactly. True. And that's what Steve Deace means by political will. So like I said, when I was mentioning him, yeah, I understand that. But now here's the thing. If the country isn't going to hold the target up, then you don't have a country. Constitution's dead. Law's dead. You have the rule of the will of people. And this pretty much gets me to where I wanted to go with this. I have had zero, well, I won't say zero. I've had very little luck or success. I've had very little success teaching anybody anything about the founding fathers, the founding ideology of this country, or why the things that the founding fathers did were done the way they did them. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody has decided they already know. And I can't change their minds. Even when I tell them where to go, where to look, even when I translate the older English I'm banging my head against a wall. Nobody. Very, very, very few people. I don't get it. And I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm done with that. I can't stop what's coming. It's inevitable. Who can fight the beast? If you have ears to hear, you know what I'm saying. All I can do is help those who actually come to me and want help. The folks that come to me politically, they just, for the most part, there are exceptions, but for the most part, they just want their ears tickled. I ain't that guy. You want your ears tickled? There are plenty of talking heads out there that handle politics. It's not me anymore. I don't want it. I don't want it. I am going to do something to the best of my ability that's going to have a more lasting impact. I want to help those believers who are trying to get themselves out from Mystery Babylon, back into the way. I want to help them better understand their scriptures so that they can strengthen their faith, so that they can stand up in the storm, and that they won't fall away and be shattered, and they won't lose their faith when the things that they're taught by the visible church prove to be wrong. And it will. It will. Now, if you are a disciple of the Messiah, the world calls you a Christian. Christ would not call himself a Christian. He's a Hebrew of the tribe of Judah, of the kingdom of Judah. But he would tell you he was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, yeah, Joe, those are more Jews. No. Jew means Judah. That's where the word comes from. Judea came from Judah. It's all dealing with the house of Judah, the southern kingdom. So those who are trying to follow the way, I don't know that I'd call myself Christian. I'd call myself a disciple of the Messiah. But if you're in a Christian church, you're in Mystery Babylon. I can biblically defend that until the cows come home and the chickens wake up in the morning. If you're willing to listen to the scriptures. The Bible tells you that it's an apostate church. The Bible, not me. The Bible tells you what it is. So a lot of the things that you are learning in your Christian churches will eventually destroy your faith. When the storm rages in all of its fury, and you realize that a lot of the things you were taught to believe in and you're waiting for and the things that you think are going to happen aren't happening, or are happening entirely different than the way you were told and taught, that will destroy many people's faith. Now, I'm not claiming to be a prophet. I've told you that. But I do read the Bible very differently than most everybody that I have encountered. Why? It's very simple. I read the Bible. I set aside my preconceived notions. I read it. When I run into something I don't understand, I start first by looking at the language behind it, interlinear Bibles, lexicons, concordances, etc., etc. Still don't understand, I go to the culture. Is there an idiom here, a figure of speech I'm missing? Is there a cultural context that I'm missing? When that doesn't work, I look to the concept that's being discussed in the scriptures, and I look for that concept elsewhere in the scripture, explained in different ways, and I try to triangulate. Essentially, I do what Yahweh, God, tells Isaiah in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 18. Come, let's plead your case together. Let's argue. Let's reason. Legal language. I wrestle with Yahweh and his word. In the process, I've discovered it is actually a fairly simple story. It's told in a very complicated way. It's told in a way that if you won't accept it as a child, you won't see it. You can't. But if you've been born from above of spirit, water and spirit, truth and spirit, and you accept what the scriptures are telling you as a child, just simply accept it. Like Dad said so when you're a baby. Okay, cool. Dad's got it. The story is easy. I have to start working where I see benefit and fruit from my efforts. The only place where I see anybody telling me I'm really helping them anymore is when I teach the scriptures. So that's where I'm going. I'm even thinking about, if I can, changing the name of this show. I already have a new domain registered today, and it's going to be the title. We've told you we're working on a book. Charlie has helped. This is the proposed cover art that we're working on. The title of the first book is going to be We Who Are Lost. And this is the proposed cover. We've got to put the text and everything on it. We're going to work on that. But We Who Are Lost is probably going to be the name of the new efforts that we're working under. And I've got to see if I can change the names on Rumble and on StreamYard. I'm going to look into that. If not, I'll figure it out. It's going to be a little expensive at first, but I mean, not horribly so, but my wife and I have discussed this. We're going to move around some of the money that we use to help other Christian organizations. We're going to use it to keep this going, because it seems to be the only place where I'm feeding people in a way that matters. And it's the only place where I seem to be getting fed right now by y'all and by my congregation. Wednesdays will be theological lessons like I've been doing. Fridays now are going to be lessons on the Bible culture, more esoteric concepts in your Bible that are culturally related, like covenants and treaties and things like this. Hints on how to better study and more effectively study your scriptures, apologetics work, etc., etc. When he gets done with his lesson on Mormonism, I've discussed this with Charlie. I don't know if he's going to want to do it, but I had mentioned maybe asking him to handle practical application lessons in the scriptures. Yes, sir?
Doesn't matter if I want to do it.
Yeah, but
if Yahweh wants it done, it'll get done.
But we're also going to change this into a way where if we find other brothers and sisters that have similar heart and similar understanding of the scriptures, we'll have a lot more room to let them help add to the show.
Yeah.
I have to
We've
feed
got
the
some
sheep.
class members that have come along a long ways. They might want to
Yep.
jump
Yes.
in here and help.
But I have to start feeding the sheep the best I can. We'll work on that. I don't. Oh, we got a comment on the board from Mr. William Keeley. It says, "What about teaching life and self-sufficiency skills?" That's practical application there, Mr. Keeley. I see what you're talking about, but I know where you're at. That's more of a survivalist bent, though. I want to keep things to the scriptures as best I can. How to actually walk the walk. We're going to have a little problem with this. Up until now, we've been. I don't believe in selling the word of Yahweh. I don't want to get paid to teach the scriptures. But we're going to need continued help if we're going to keep this show on the air. My wife and I can pick up the difference of what I expect to lose now, because there's some people who have donated that I fully expect that they're not going to want to donate anymore. And I got that. If they do, praise Yahweh. If they don't, I got that. I'm okay with that. But we're not going to ask for donations the way, at least not the way we've done in the past. We'll keep the reader threads up. We'll let them talk to you. And the way we see it, it'll be a free will contribution to our efforts here, not a tithe or anything like that. We don't want to make money here. We just need to keep the lights on, keep the show going. We're going to need help for that. That costs money. Not a whole lot, but it's a couple $100 a month, several $100 a month. But we'll just wait and see where that goes. I'll keep the donate page up. We'll wait and see what happens. I'll trust Yahweh with this. If this move is his will, he'll take care of it. He knows what we need. We're also going to start working on getting that book out, and I'm going to start working on the next book. We need to leave breadcrumbs, things that we can put in people's hands that, they can take my show off the air. They can demonetize the platform. Not that we're making anything on the platforms anyhow. They can do everything, unless, of course, we've put it in your hands. So we will shortly be creating the Amazon site where we can sell the first book as soon as it's ready. Cheap. It's going to be under $5. It's very cheap, PDF format. And we'll make it available on the web page. On the blog page it'll be a Kindle reader on Amazon, PDF on the blog. You'll be able to get it either way. And I will probably be putting up a new blog page where I will start to transit. I'll go to the internet and collect all the rest of my scripturally based work from wherever it's at. And I'll start moving it over to this one centrally. And I say Christian as a colloquialism. You know what I'm talking about. Spiritual scripture. I'll move it over to a central source. I will keep the Road to Concord up. And when I can't handle it and I have to vent politically or philosophically, I'll keep that blog page going and I'll post there. But hopefully I can do this with a minimum of problems. Like I said, the move is gonna. We'll see how Yahweh handles that. That's gonna cost a little bit of money, especially if I want to create another blog page that doesn't have ads on it, which is a requirement. If I don't, I've noticed over time what they'll do. It's why I shut down the oil or quit using the oil and quit using On the Road to Damascus. I couldn't afford to fund them that way. It's about $400 a year. And both the times what I found is the hosting companies started running ads for things that shouldn't be on a Christian, a Christian or scriptural or Bible-based site. Really, really nasty stuff in some cases. So you got to pay to get rid of the ads. That requires you to go to the next level of the blog page. It's runs around $400 a year. We'll see what we can come up with. We'll see what happens. Got a little bit of time before we make the move. But I've got to focus on scripture. It makes my job a little easier. I now only have to work on one lesson plan a week. The stuff I handle on Fridays is pretty easy. That's off the cuff. It's stuff I already learned. stuff I need to share with other believers that helps them better understand. I wish Natasha was with us, but Charlie, pop in here, would you, if you don't mind?
There we go.
I didn't do that. I didn't touch it.
No, it was my mouse.
You've been studying with me for several years now. Have you learned anything about the cultures from the Hebrews and all, or the things like that,
yes.
that are the air you breathe in your scripture, as I like to say, that is it helped you with your studies and your understanding?
Absolutely.
Because it's things that most believers wouldn't even think to study, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And once you do, oh my gosh, the scriptures come to life, because you can see it from their perspective, and it gives you a greater understanding of the authors and the people that they were talking to. And it brings out,
makes it real.
Things, and it brings out things that you would have never seen before if you didn't know the culture.
I know, I don't know if you paid attention when you visited that one time, but I know you've seen the bookshelves here. There are 3 shelves right there that are nothing but the culture of the ancient Near East and the ancient Hebrew culture. That's all it is. 3 shelves full of, it's 9, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's about 10 feet, 10 foot of linear feet of nothing but, and I've read most of them.
Yeah.
So, and that helps me a great deal. And I incorporate it into my teachings, and I want to do more of that, little chunks. And I want to start spicing your studies up so that it's more appealing to the average believer, make you want to read your scriptures, make it come to life for you, make it more concrete.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's what it's all about. Is, it's kind of like, as you've taught history here too, you teach it differently than anything I ever learned in school, because in school it's just, rote memorization of dates and, just a boring as crap. Because I remember sleeping through a whole semester of history in high school because it was just so boring. Although I passed, but because I mean it's so stupid stuff. But when you look at it from the application point of view, really is what you're teaching us, then that makes a difference, because then you're like, oh, I can do something about this, and I can apply this in my life, instead of, oh, that's a fun story,
I don't care about the who and when. I want to know the what, where, and why. Right. And then how does it extend backward into time? What caused me to get there, and what were they trying to do going forward? Then you can go back and learn the who and the when if you want to.
Because that's the one thing that people don't understand about our founding fathers. Our founding fathers did nothing new. But what they did is they knew history, and they knew the application of history, and they did their best to try to learn how to take all that they learned about history and all the mistakes that were made in different governments, and tried to create one that covered those mistakes as best they could, knowing all the time that human nature would eventually demolish whatever they created.
Yes.
That's really what they were doing. And they were wondering, how long will this last? A little over 200 years. And that's the answer.
Here's their flaw. And it's found in Jefferson. He said, well, raise a banner so that in the future, the better educated, better understanding, they'll be able to repair the mistakes, the damage. They should have known that would never happen.
Yeah.
They knew enough human nature to know that that's not going to happen. It will eventually fall apart. Right. And it has. And it is.
Yeah.
So I've realized that a lot of people,
if you can keep it.
Exactly. The reason that I'm tired of trying to help people understand the Constitution is they've got the idea set in their head of what the founding fathers were wanting to do and trying whatever. The truth is, there's 3, 4 shelves right there. The truth by the founder's hand, the founder's hand, telling us what they were, and nobody wants to listen to them. Oh, that's not what he meant. This is what he meant. No. That's us individually writing our will on top of the founding fathers. So we don't care. We don't want to learn. Right. Well, I've realized I can't get you to understand the Constitution if you don't want to read what the founding fathers said it meant. Right. All I get is, that's your opinion, Joe. I'm literally quoting Madison, the guy who wrote
quoting
it.
Founding Fathers, right?
Okay. Well, I can't do anything with most Christians either for the same thing, same reason. But there are people coming out of Mystery Babylon that come out, they know there's something wrong with what they've been taught, especially if they start reading their scriptures. They'll run into that real fast. So they come out looking for a guide. And there are very few churches that are going to help them now, very few congregations that can help them with that. Mostly they end up on the internet. And most of these, Charlie, what's a charitable word for most of these teachers? Because all the words that just rushed into my head are not very gracious.
Oh my gosh.
Most of these would be or want to be or would like to be teachers. Maybe. Trying to fill the void. They don't.
I don't know a good word that's kind, because
the majority of them should hush their mouths.
You know that I shared something with you in the last week, because I shared something that we taught to a teacher that openly says, I want the truth and I will teach the truth. And they didn't even look at it without, before they responded, and just, basically vomited their traditions of men. And this is a teacher that's very dear to my heart, because they've helped me over time. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. But I'm moving further and further away from him because he will not move. And it hurts me, really, because, this is our problem, is that there are people that we will not be able to reach because they are so steeped in their traditions. I can quote a Mormon prophet, well, so-called prophet, that, traditions are riveted on the hearts, and how hard is it to remove a rivet? This is so true, because, we've got these people that, talk about the Constitution and all this, but then, and they've got their quotes from the Founding Fathers, but they're taken out of context, by the way. And then you provide, those quotes, perhaps even in the context from which they were drawn. And they won't even listen to you.
They do the same with scripture.
And that's what we're facing. We're going to be reaching those people that have open hearts. If you don't have an open heart, it's not going to work. That's really what we're trying to do. And there's not going to be many. We know that. We already know that there's not going to be many. We've seen that in our congregation. We've seen that on this show. And that's why we say we'll never make any money at doing this, because, there's going to be so few that will actually come to Yahweh. This is prophecy. It is prophecy. We're talking, 10% or less is probably what we're looking at. But with that said, those are those chosen few of Yahweh, and we have a requirement as teachers and as ministers to help them to come to the truth. And if they are willing to do that, then that's going to be the fruit of our labors, at least from what we can do to help Yahweh.
I don't think, case in point for some of this, the way to get rid of a rivet, you got to drill it out.
Right.
Drill a rivet out.
Drill it out. Right.
I don't think I'll be exposing too much here if I share the fact that this teacher you're talking about was talking about the book of Revelation.
Yes.
And they were saying you have to interpret it literally.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something that is an absolute guaranteed 100% fact. And if you disagree with me, you are wrong. And I know this to be true as much as I know that it's Yahweh and his son, the Messiah, Yeshua. If you read the book of Revelation literally, and that's the way you interpret it first and foremost, just literally, you are wrong.
You're wrong.
You are wrong. Guaranteed.
And if you read Revelation sequentially, you're wrong.
Yep.
I can say that just just from my knowledge of what I've learned about Hebrew and the way Hebrew is done literally, literally, however you say that word.
Yeah, literally. Literally.
Literally.
For those that wonder why I say this, the book of Revelation is apocalyptic language. written in the prophetic language. An apocalyptic prophetic, it's apocalyptic meaning end of the world type of things.
Yeah, it's all
Prophetic,
symbolic.
the prophets have their own language, and it's symbolic, and they define it. If you go back to the Tanakh, the Old Testament prophets, they tell you what the terms mean, and it never changes. It doesn't change. It stays. The prophets have their own language.
That was a significant emotional event in my life when I actually saw in the explanation of the candlesticks and stuff like that in the scriptures where the prophet defined those, and it's like, oh well, I guess I can't argue with that. They defined the term themselves, so that's a nail in that.
And that's
coffin.
A case where the definition for the candlesticks and all and the two witnesses is given in the book of Revelation. So then if you take that definition back to Zechariah, where it isn't given, now you understand Zechariah.
Right, exactly.
Case in point, Dr. Michael Heiser, he and I had the longest conversation I had with him by email was about the prophetic language. He rejects it. He reads the prophets literally. Big boo-boo. He in his own books, he tells you the prophet will interpret his vision, but he reads it literally. Well, if the prophet is interpreting his vision, the prophet is telling you what the symbolic language is. And for whatever reason, there was a block. And now I'm not telling you that was probably Yahweh's hand. Sometimes Yahweh doesn't want us to see these things.
Yeah.
Okay. But he didn't see it. I guarantee you it's there. Just like once you understand bifids, chiasms, and Hebrew parallelism. A bifid is when the book is written in two halves. It's the same message written two different ways, often to two different audiences. This is why they think Isaiah was written by two different people.
They do that bifid all the time. That is a literary technique. It's a Hebrew literary technique.
They use it everywhere.
Oh my gosh, you look in Psalms, it's all over in there.
And then chiasms, it's stepladder. The simplest chiasms
are all over there.
Your ways are not mine. My ways are not yours. But chiasms are complicated because sometimes it's not like for like. Sometimes it's opposite for opposite.
And they can be huge.
Yes.
Like you say, the whole, I need to look that one up. The whole book of Isaiah is.
The whole book of Isaiah is a giant chiasm. And I've got a picture of it saved somewhere.
Yeah, I need to try to look that up because I'd love to see that.
The most complicated piece of Hebrew literature in your Bible is the book of Revelations. Because it is a bifid with multiple chiasms chiasms with parallelism running throughout.
Right.
Once you understand that, it's only about 6 things told 3 different ways to 2 different audiences.
Right. Yep.
Once you understand that, easy peasy. And once you understand what you're reading and you use the prophetic language, Book of Revelations is not that complicated. But it was written that way on purpose. Only the people Yahweh wants to see will see and understand. Right. Which means Satan cannot understand the Book of Revelations.
Yeah. So we've got our work cut out for us. And what we're trying to do is the same thing I'm trying to do with my Mormonism series, because, and I explained this in the introduction to that series, that the vast majority of those people leaving the Mormon church end up either atheist or agnostic, because they're just throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to reach anything those anymore. People to bring them back to Yahweh instead of, going those other directions. And that's what we're trying to do.
So this direction bears fruit for me. And it's someplace I'm interested in. I know I need to go. Every time I've tried to quit teaching, Yahweh has let me know it's not what I want for you. A couple decades ago, I told him, I'll do whatever you want. Just use me in the kingdom. He's going to use me as a teacher. It's been made very, very plainly, clearly. I mean, drilled that in my head. He once, when I tried to quit, took my physical health. Second time, took my physical health. Third time, there's only one thing left. He's going to take me out of this world. My wife needs me, so I'm going to teach. I'm not going to test that. I'll teach. And I've noticed that whenever I try to teach for my own purposes, I screw up and get sideways. I'm going to teach his word. So for those I might be disappointing, I can't help it. We'll miss you. I get it. I understand.
But
The focus is going to be on helping those people get out of Babylon.
I'm going to jump in here too. And I think this is true, and you can tell me if it's not, but you probably wouldn't say this, but when you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're seeing Yahweh bless you fiscally and physically and spiritually. And when you're not, you are having troubles. And that's kind of the way we know things. Those are little breadcrumbs that you need to look for in your life, but
the pattern is consistent.
Probably applies to a vast majority of us.
The pattern is consistent and it never, ever fails.
Right. Yep.
Every single time. But I have to look with spiritual eyes, because sometimes it's not money in the bank blessing that even when you're talking about fiscal, you can get a fiscal blessing that has nothing to do with giving you extra money.
Oh, right.
Maybe a debt falls away, or something happens where you don't have to. Maybe nothing more than your stock portfolio goes up. I don't know.
Or
it can happen.
Your
in many
washing
ways.
machine keeps working and working and working longer than it normally would.
Yeah,
or something simple like that. You don't even
tires don't wear out.
Right.
I got a set of tires on my truck right now that are pushing 86,000 miles, and they're still good. I asked them about that at the dealership, and they said, nope, you don't need them yet. 86,000 miles, the original pair of tires on this truck.
Wow, that's amazing. But, there is some scriptural support to that, because the Israelites, when they were wandering in the wilderness, their clothing and their sandals lasted 40 years. Yes. I think that's pretty good. I want some of those.
So, people think fiscally, they think wrong. You should think provisionally.
Yes.
He will provide. And he tells us he'll provide your needs, not your wants. So you need to look with those eyes. You don't
necessarily need to be rich. I'm not rich, but I am comfortable in my retirement. And so
he also expects us to use what he gives us to help others as well.
Right. And I've got that. So it's good.
I know one of the things he's given me, and I don't know it because I've decided it. I know it because other people who I firmly believe are in the spirit echo back to me their assent. I get it. He's given me an understanding of the scriptures that exceeds most of the people that I look at today that are alive trying to teach. And I need to share that. If I sit on that, that's a big no-no. So got to do what I'm supposed to do, and that's where we're heading. And it'll happen in the next few weeks. I'm not going to just mark time on it. It's got to happen now. I've already started.
And I have to say, you're the only living teacher I trust now, unfortunately.
Boy, you're in trouble.
I know. And that's why I do my best to try to check you every time that you bring me something new. I go and try to be a good Berean and go check it out for myself and see if you're right.
Well, we're going to bore everybody to death with this, so we're going to cut out early today. I will be back next Wednesday. If you're of a mind, you can join us on our congregational show on YouTube, the Congregation of Yahweh, Panama City. I think our Sabbath study starts at 11 Central, and I'm going to be getting back. Yeah, I can't clean this one up.
I'll get that.
I'll be starting us back in our slide presentation on the prophets. Now that Passover's over, we're going to get back to the prophets. And we were doing Ellis Schofield's slide presentation on the book of Revelation and Daniel. So we'll get back to where we left off on that. If you have been keeping up with us, this should be something you're looking forward to. A lot of people like it when we go through that understanding of prophecy. If it's new to you, you can go back and check over the old shows and catch up with us. Everything's recorded. Thank you, JMW. Excited to see where this goes. That's another thing I'm thinking about. I may not do 2 hours, but I might actually find another day of the week where I sneak in and just talk to you about the prophetic language. Because there have been times where I sat down with Charlie one time and read the prophets, where I was translating the prophet for him, as I read it, what the prophet was actually talking about. You should have seen the look on Charlie's face, because it was like, it was clicking in his head. He was understanding it in a whole different light, Because, what do you mean about the tall trees, tops of the cedars and the trees and everything? And when I explained to him what the prophets were talking about, oh crap, it was right there in front of his face. He got it.
Right.
Trusting a jarhead could be dangerous. Yes, it can be. You're correct about that. So, but yeah, I might actually do a show where we discuss the prophetic language, because it is a full 1/3 of your scriptures. And it shows up in more places than you realize. And you must always look spiritual first with a prophecy, then physical. Always. No exceptions. Because the prophet is born from above and the spirit world is more real to him. He has a window into it. And he's taught at the feet of the Father and Son. So I no longer eat crayons. I'm evolved. Thank you, Mr. Quest.
I may have a show Monday. It's just if I can finish getting it ready, because I've been really busy since I had family visiting. I will try my best. If not, I'll just keep watching be subscribed to the channels, and I'll put it up as soon as I have my stuff together, and hopefully we'll get it done. If not, I'll push it off. So we'll see.
All right. That's it. We're done. We'll see y'all next, it may be Monday, if not Wednesday. Shabbat Shalom. Y'all take care. Stay safe. And Yahweh bless. We'll see you.